Welcome to Grow Your Strength. I have a new routine this morning. So if you're doing the tape this week, take some time to do a little rolling before the class. And we're going to get started right now with some breathing. So any breathing position works, face up, face down. In this program, I'm going to go face up, and I'm just going to work with a sense of what's going on in my abdominal area when I breathe in. So I've just nestled myself onto the floor. Knees could be bent, or you could have your legs straight if that felt okay on your back. As you breathe in, sense that your belly button elevates. And as you breathe out, it falls back down towards the floor. Breathing in and out through your nose would be recommended. This is more of a breath that will access your diaphragm muscle, which intersects around your torso. And as you breathe in, it creates that intra-abdominal pressure that pushes out. That's why the belly button lifts, but there's also pressure to the sides, to the back, and to the hips, pelvis, and privates. So as you breathe in, the air here expands, the diaphragm comes down, and just you get this sense of fullness. On the exhale, everything just recoils. So I like that sense of feeling that you're getting a good deep breath. It's just a practice. So if you feel that you're breathing up into your neck and shoulders, or your belly button is not going up with your inhalation, this is a good time before training just to take a minute or two and practice that sensation. Expansion on the inhale, recoiling on the exhale. Good to take the attention to review breathing because it can be thrown off with stress and pain and poor sleep, etc. So now I'm going to take my feet off the floor and go into a reverse tabletop position. Also, my hands to the roof. I've anchored in my shoulder blade. So if I reach my fingertips to the roof and then I do the opposite of that, I pull my shoulders down and lightly connect them to the floor. The knees anchored over the hips, so not too close to the shoulders, so you fire up the front of your hips, but just feel the breath in this position. A little harder to control the breath. And if you were to take your hands and knees, drift them a few more inches away from center, you might find that your abdominal muscles need to work harder not to lift the back off the floor. Okay, so if that's enough, you can pull your knees in for a little rest and just roll side to side. And then when you're ready, refine that position again. Here's your core set. And now I'm going a little wider and maybe drifting away from center. Trying not to hold my breath. I'm talking, so I can't really do that. But then just being aware that you could keep that deep inhale and exhale through these challenges. Bring your knees in again when you need a rest. And then let's do this one more time. And this time we'll go in a opposite pattern. So you can bring your opposite arm and leg away from each other on a diagonal, and perhaps turn your head and just look at your overhead fingers. Involve your neck gently. Return to center and go to the other side. And you want to be within the edge of your capacity. So if you go too far, it's like, oh, my back or my rib cage is lifted. You can build up some time under this connection, this tension, and do some movements. As you progress through this program, we'll go a little further. That looks great there. And just challenging your core, gently waking it up. Next, I'm progressing us to side lying rib grabs. So taking some time to stack the legs and roll the top hip forward a bit. Bottom shoulder, I'm not squishing it, so I've kind of popped it forward. If you like neck support, this would be a good time to put a small pillow or a piece of foam underneath your head. I take the top arm and I just rotate away from the floor. So I'm rolling forward and then rolling away, getting a little rotation through my upper back, and finishing the rotation by rolling my head and looking away. Because my knees are stacked, and like I mentioned, I've got this top hip kind of almost rolled a little bit forward, bottom hip tucked under, I'm not able to rotate very much. If I let my knees separate, I could kind of splay open, but the purpose of this is to improve that rotation through the upper back and neck. And so it's a small movement. You can just do some like 6 small resets and add a hold perhaps in the end range here as you're turned away. What happens when you take another deep breath in and out? Just let things relax. And then we'll switch over to the other side. Stacking, making sure my bottom shoulder isn't squished, and rotate away. The weight of the head is supported on the floor, so this is much easier to test your neck rotation. Nice gentle turn. Your head can weigh around 10 to 12 pounds, so that can take a lot of create a lot of tension depending on the postural issues and how the head is situated. So getting the neck mobilized a little bit with the weight of the head on the floor is a nice way to do it. From here, I'll take us to sitting. I'm going to take the ankle work in sitting in this program. So taking some time to extend my legs out, and I'm going to start with point and flex of my ankles, spreading my toes. And then take it to some ankle inversion and eversion. So I'm rolling the soles of my feet in and out, trying to keep my legs still. We'll take the foot into some ankle circles, a couple in each direction, tracing as big a circle with your toes as you can. And then taking the legs, bend the knees, take the feet a little wider apart, and we'll just gently start to do some knee turns, letting the hips fall into their end range. And once you get the pattern side to side, you could add a gentle turn in the opposite direction to your knees. A reminder to have the breath again. In past classes, I've done some work in the 90-90 position, and I'd like you to start this new series with the 90-90 and then take the front leg and extend it out. So it's a little bit of a change in that position, and just let the leg be loose. Just kind of let the hip roll the leg out and in. You can do some faster like I did, and then some slower. And then finding the legs straight up, use your body just to sit into that. I'm pulsing my torso towards the outside, towards the center, and towards the inside, getting a little different stretch response through my hamstring and hip. You can also try the stretches with your leg turned out. So this was what I would call biasing external rotation. So then now you can go little pulse, little pulse, little pulse. How do things feel? And then one more, we'll roll the leg in. And here I'm pulsing to the inside, the center, and the outside. Okay, that's pretty deep into my hamstring this morning. So now I'll just carefully come out of that and go over to the other side. I started with 90-90, and then I extended this front leg out. I loosened it up, and then I went a little slower. I adjusted my upper body and my sit bones so I could hold my legs straight up, pulsing in those 3 different planes. Letting my leg roll out, external hip, same thing, pulsing into the 3 different planes. Just try and keep a tall posture, keep your breath going. Part of the movement map idea is how's it feeling compared to side 1? Rotate the leg in and finish this off, just nice and gentle. Personally, I'm feeling a little tighter on this side today, so it's just good to always check in with things. I might spend some more time doing that kind of stretch later. Okay, we'll go to something more familiar from last program, which is a bear hold. And we'll hold that for 3 to 5 breaths and then take it back to a plank if you like. So I got my back set in neutral, gently tucking my toes, lift my knees off, and I'm doing some deep breath cycles, being mindful that I'm not locked out in my elbows, so I have a slight bend in my elbows. And I'm using my fingers too. I'm not just putting the weight into my wrists. After the breath cycles, rest your knees down. Take a moment to circle or stretch your wrists. And at your own pace, we'll come back, either repeat the bear or step back into a plank, activating your hip muscles by gently squeezing them. Go through your checklist. Are you using your fingers? Do your shoulders feel strong? Are you pushing the floor away? And then what about those deep breath cycles? On this break, we'll come back to all fours and do 1 hip circle per side. So I find my connection with the floor, slowly take 1 knee off, and I'm circling around, tracing the mobility I can access. Nice and slow, trying to keep the weight even between my hands. And then I'm going to reverse direction. I'm still on my first side to get a sense of how slow I'm going. Excellent. And then taking some time to reset and switching sides. 1 slow circle in each direction. Here we go. Side 2. Coming to half kneeling position after this, just taking some time to level out the hips. So I usually like to do a little hip to armpit rock, and then feel like I'm stacked in my posture with my rib cage. So if you have a big arch in your back, you can shorten that just by tucking under a little bit so you feel aligned. You can pulse forward as long as you're not increasing the arch of your back. You get a little hip and quad stretch. What about this ankle? You pull the heel in a bit more and glide the knee over the middle of your foot. And then after about 5 of those, we'll take this front foot out on an angle and we'll do the same thing. So just opening up through the hips, through the ankle, try to keep the heel down. Good. And we'll switch sides. Hip to armpit. Level out the hips. Stack the posture. Gentle pulses forward. Keep the breath deep. Getting some good ankle mobility. Bringing the knee forward, keeping the heel down. Good. Out on an angle. Adjusting the heel. Good. After 5 of this, I'm going to bring us to standing, and we'll start in a staggered stance today. So that means one foot in front of the other. I just have my feet hip width or slightly wider, so I feel like I have a good base of support. Okay, the wider the base of support, the more balanced you feel. Taking the arms across the chest, we'll rotate from the hips up. So just turning and gently looking behind you and back to center and then over to the other side. Just taking this nice and slow, 2 or 3 rotations each way. So if I turn and kind of spill in the hips, I would prefer you try to keep your hips square so that you get more rotation through the upper back and neck. So just be mindful that you're not spilling. And use vision to help improve your rotation by looking behind you. Arms overhead, fingers spread, and let's just sort of wave the arms in the air. I've heard this called paint the rainbow. Just get a little stretch through the side waist. Good. And then we'll take time to do this on one more time by switching your front foot. Arms across. This is a great little move to do before you go for a walk, because it mimics the gait, split stance. And then when we walk, we have good arm movement. So we're looking for some rotation through the shoulder blades. So just 2 or 3 turns. And then arms overhead. And you're free to go walking. Nice. Body weight squats. So nice and slow. I wrote this as 1 slow squat, 1 slow hip hinge, and then 1 slow circle of the arms, double shoulder cars all the way around, taking the arms through that range of motion, similar to what we did with the hips, pushing back. I've got my palms rotated out. Take some time to then tap one hand up the back and then rotate through this. I was talking about this move with a osteopath yesterday, and she was just saying, do you cue people not to move through pain? And I think I just didn't right now, but I have in the past. If you have painful shoulders and you don't feel like, you reach a sticking point, just move around it. Okay, so always be thinking that we don't want to try and trigger that painful movement. Stay away from pain. Okay, lateral weight shifts. So we're going to take some time to stand on one foot by working the side to side movement. And as you go side to side, I was practicing this week, just putting my hands on my hips with my thumbs right in my hip muscles. As you stand to the side, you can feel those muscles activate. So you need a lot of lateral hip stability for balance. As you go through the side to side, not only is the hip stabilizing you, but a lot of the muscles on the knee and in the ankle and foot are. So if you had poor foot stability, when you come on, you might find your arch collapsing or your knee coming in. So you want to try and keep the foot as neutral as possible. so not rolling too far in and having the knee come follow. And if you need balance support to sort of figure this out, feel free to do that. But those are some cues of things that we're looking for. I'm going to take the feet a little wider now and sit back into my hip, coming back up to standing and then over to the other side. In this program, I do have a lateral step with an overhead press option. So this is just going through the motion to warm up. As you go back, think about sitting your hips back as opposed to knee forward, right? So you come back, use your arms to help you if you need to, come back up to standing and sit back. Great. Okay, and then what have I got? One more round of our squat, hinge, and cars, and then we'll move into our loaded work. Okay, so nice slow squat. Good. Nice slow hinge. Sit those hips back to the wall behind you. And then into your shoulder cars. Taking some time to make sure you're not locked out in the knees. So float the posture over your feet. Open up your toes. Smile to yourself. This is good stuff you're doing. Resist the urge to arch back to get more out of your shoulders. So try to stay connected in your posture and core. Don't move through pain. Here we go. And a slow rewind. Open up those fingers. Nice work. Okay, so let's get right into what I was talking about with the lateral step and press. Find a weight that you know you can press overhead. I'm going to hold this in the right hand. I'm going to step out and come back to standing and then press. So aiming for, let's say 6, but hey, if you're doing this and you feel like this is too easy, you could go higher with the rep range. You could go a little heavier, go down in reps. I feel like the rep range has to be something that you figure out based on how you're feeling on any given day. And also the health of your shoulders, your strength training experience, it all comes into it. So for me to just say flat out this many reps, it's kind of crazy. I reach a point where I'm like, yeah, I feel that feels good. I've challenged myself nicely. So I think that was about 5. So now we go other side, step, posture, press. Step out, get those hips back, press. Nice work. I'm going to take us to calf raises with a ball between the heels. Line up the feet straight. If you need balance support, just be near something. Take some time to open up the toes. On your exhale, you can lift and gently squeeze the ball and lower. A harder surface makes it easier for these balance type exercises. So I'll go to my Naboso mat, and this is a textured mat that I have that's quite grippy. So anything that's a little bit more grippy or a harder surface, you're going to get a bit more control. So taking some time to exhale, gently connecting with my toes as I lift my heels, and then slowly down. 6 to 10 of those. Work those smaller muscles in the feet to get stronger. Okay, reverse lunge is going to be next. So after you've done your calf raises, we'll go to reverse lunge. I'm showing you from the side so I can cue you. We'll aim for a rep range of 6 and step back, get connected with the back toes, drop down to where you can control and step forward. Now, how far you step back is individual, and whether you let the front knee go forward a bit is also up to you. Generally speaking, the knee over the ankle in the front without too much forward is going to be easier on your knee. But over time, it feels okay on your knees. You get a little bit more strengthening through your thigh muscles, your quads, allowing a little forward knee. Step back nice and straight. As you drop down, watch that your knee isn't caving in or you're losing your foot control. The idea is that the knee tracks right over the midfoot. And power yourself back up to standing. Good. I'm going to go through these 3 exercises again. So going to the lateral raise, lateral step and raise. How did the weight feel the first set? Was it heavy enough? Mental talk, I'm going to do 5. You could be 6. You could be a few more, as I mentioned. Each rep, good quality. Boom, get that arm overhead. Make sure it feels okay. Step, up, and reach. I went 1 dumbbell size higher, and that just feels like I've created a little bit more work with the 5 reps. Switching sides. Looks great, everyone. Keep the focus. Wonderful. Calf raises. Feet straight. Okay. On the exhale, lift. If you feel like you're losing your arches over time, you can squeeze the ball a little bit more, sort of turning the soles of your feet in. If your arches are strong, when your feet are neutral, just gently hold the ball between the heels. This exercise can really do a lot to strengthen the smaller muscles in the arches of your feet, which many of us need with aging as the years go by. Longevity. Here we go. Good. Now, as you go into the reverse lunges, think about those connections with your toes. So as you step back with the rear foot, toes bend, right? Knee bends, and then you get to power off with a little bit of push through those toes, up to 6 per side. Good, good work. Everybody looks great. Posture, pace. keep focused on what you're doing. Okay, I'm going to move us to a bent over row, and I've lightened up my weights. I'm going to take my hips back into a hinge position and pull the elbows up, squeezing the shoulder blades together, working to stay out of the neck. Up to 10 reps. Okay, a slight hinge position. Maybe the hips go back, so the torso is in a forward lean. You really feel the angles of that pull, elbows to the sides, shoulder blades pinched together. We're gonna double up on some postural work there by then taking a light band, and we're going with a full arm pull. So check that the tension works to have your arms open. Palms are up, and I'm just taking the time to extend the hands away from each other. If you don't have a band that works for this, you could just use open arms. But try lots of different angles. One high, cross the center, just a little bit offset. Depending on the tension in your band, you could really go up to about 20 of those. All right, I'm taking us down to the floor after this for a bridge or a single leg bridge, and we're going to work on the get up as well. So finish off your band pulls. Lying on your back for a bridge position. Adjust the posture through the neck. If you have a big curve in your back, you want to decrease that curve. Tighten up your hips as you lift your hips up. Now this is your 2-foot or double bridge. There's tension at the top, and then as you come back down, you can release the tension. Watch that you're not losing the postural connection that you set up. So every time you do this, you might have to check your chin tuck and reset your back a little bit by pressing just a little bit down to the floor. Then I really feel my core is aligned and I'm using my hips to come up. Okay, single leg bridge, take one foot off. You can either just hover the leg there or grab onto the back of your thigh and take your arm across your rib cage. That just keeps you locked in to this single leg lift and lower, up and down. So things I might see with the single leg bridge that wouldn't be so good is that you lift up and the hips aren't level, that things are off kilter. It's easy to stay on kilter with 2 feet on the ground, and you want to mimic that as you go with the one. That's why the single leg bridges are so much harder. Okay, so now back to the get up, Sheila's favorite exercise. If you know the get up, you can certainly go ahead and do a full get up. In this program, I'm working the get up to the high bridge. So on the back, I have the right knee bent and the right arm up in the air, the left arm and leg out on an angle. I find that core connection again, and then when I'm ready, I'm going to take a breath in and an easy roll to the elbow. Then I flatten my hand and come up to the tall sit position, and maybe you have to pull your hand in a smidge so you can find a connection through your foot and your hand to lift yourself up into the high bridge. You can keep your eye on your hand overhead. Slowly come back down to that sitting position. Make sure you haven't shrugged through your shoulder. Come down to the elbow. Again, make sure happy shoulders, no shrugging, and roll away to the floor. Let's practice that 2 to 3 times before you switch sides. If you're a seasoned person doing this exercise, you could certainly go ahead and take a weight into your straight arm. And that's where we go over time with everyone. We want to try and load these moves, get more resistance through the body. But you want to make sure that you're confident in this pattern before you load it. That looks great. Love what I'm seeing. Okay, so I'm going to switch sides. Set myself up. I've got my left arm up in the air, left knee bent, right arm and leg out on an angle. And the angle just becomes something you figure out over time. Back down, no shrugging. So if I had my arm too close, I wouldn't be able to roll up comfortably. Too far away, oh, that feels awkward as well. So you just kind of like a snow angel, halfway. And then as you do more of these, it's like, oh yeah, that actually feels pretty good. That's the sweet spot. So just play with different angles and find your own sweet spot. Okay, after you've done even amount on both sides, we'll come to hands and knees, do a couple of cycles of cat-cow, just flexing and extending the back. You can tuck the toes and round the back up, pushing the floor away. And then slowly soften the feet, roll through extension. Finding the middle ground or your neutral back, somewhere between your flexion and extension. The last exercise in this set is a plank variation to a push-up or a lower. So depending on where you're at in this practice on the floor, you could step back and hold the high arm plank. You could do a little mini push-up, or you could try lowering to the floor. And if this feels too hard, you could put a pillow underneath your body and lower yourself down to soften the distance and as you lower yourself down. Okay, so resetting, finding where you're at. The foundation is your plank. Okay, some of you are going to be able to do a full push-up or more than one. And how you build this practice is by creating more time in planks, getting more stronger overall, and adding those lowers be a nice little secret trick to getting stronger. Great job, everyone. Okay, so we'll come back up to standing. We'll go through the bent over row. Here's my hip hinge, hips back. Back feels good, elbows to the side. Neck is nice and neutral. I'm not too high or too low with my head position. Up to 10 of these. Good. After your bent over row, find a stretchy band. Palms are up, opening. Reaching. Change the angles. Feels good. Thinking about the muscles you're activating through the back of the arms, shoulder blades. That's always going to help recruit little motor units and make you stronger. Okay, and then we're back down for the bridge or the single leg bridge. This time I'm going to go straight into 6 single leg bridges and take some time to set myself up. Connect with my foot, up, tension, down, release, reset posture if needed. This time for the get up to high bridge, I'm going to take a 7-pound dumbbell. Just taking some time to connect the body. Only add the load if you feel that you're ready. To the elbow, to the hand, to the high bridge. Slowly coming down to the hip, back to the elbow, back to the floor. 2 to 3 of those per side. I'll have a little look at what you guys are doing, and then I'll switch and do one on the other side. Great. Super. Often when I see clients doing get-ups, I'll say it's a beautiful thing. And it's because it really is. It's graceful. Takes a little brain gym, I think, to learn it sometimes. But once you have it, you never want to let it go, because that would be a sin. You never want to lose strength. We want to keep ourselves as strong as possible. And moving load from the floor to the high bridge is a great way to work a whole bunch of muscles in your body. In the internal strength model course that I'm studying, they talk about, like the body being one muscle. It has bioflow. Everything flows into the other. There's a bit of tendon and ligament into striations of the muscle. So you can't just think of them being isolated. So that's kind of a neat concept to think about when we get tight and have a problem in one part of our body. Did it just happen there, or is it part of a bioflow, something that's going on through the whole body? So I like that idea, especially when we think about improving movement and unwinding. Okay, some cat-cow, and then into your plank or push-up variation to finish. Just reminding the body that you've got good flexion and extension through your back, from your tailbone right up through your neck. If you found the variation of planking on the floor to be too challenging, you can always take it to an elevated surface. So a coffee table plank here, right? Here's a plank position. Here's a mini push-up off a coffee table. I've got the fireplace that's a little higher. Step back, still tightening up my hips, getting my posture in line. So any variation will add to your practice. Nice, Nancy, that looks great. Control on the floor is important. Watch that the head isn't dropping. You want to pull yourself down through your motion and push away with as much control as possible. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for building a stronger version of yourself with me today. I felt like the new program went well. I just missed 2 exercises. And the old trainer in me would say, oh no, you didn't get through the whole program. And then now I realize that everything we do, if we do it well. It doesn't matter that we don't get through the whole program. We'll get there over the course of the 6 weeks. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.